Okay, so let's continue with our Kafka Python tutorial series. So in the last video, we have covered the overview of the serialization and deserialization. So serialization means like if we have the Python object and we have to convert into the bytes, that is called a serialization, and the reverse conversion that is from bytes to the our back to the Python object is called the deserialization. Right. Along with that, we have like uh, this diagram. Producer has to send the message into the Kafka into the form of a bytes only. Right, so it has to do the same kind of serialization. Same as the consumer will consume the data in form of a bytes only because the data is going to store in the form of a bytes in the Kafka. Right, then it has to like do some deserialization at its end. All right, so this thing we have figured it out. So let me like run my application which we have written till now. So our cluster is up and running. So you could see our cluster is up and running and we don't have anything. So let me run my producer application. So Python producer.py, and on the side, let me run my consumer application. Sorry, Python consumer.py. So my producer application has been running and consumer application has been running, and the producer application, it says, can you send some message? Hi, I am first message. I am second message. So you could see we are sending the message in the form of a string, and we are getting the message in form of a byte along with the in the decoded form as well. So I did something in the consumer.py. You can say message consume in form of a bytes, and you can say the decoded message. Right, or you can say deserialized message, or you can say message. Yeah, what is the message consumed and what is the deserialized message, and we have like decoded. Okay, so now, and if we go to the Kafka cluster and go to the topics and expand any message, so you could see we have here text. All right, but we can send the message in a form of JSON as well. So how we can send the message in the form of a JSON? All right, so let's create. Let me stop this. Let me stop this producer, and our cluster is running, which is fine. Let me close this. So we have the producer.py file. So let me copy paste all the code and let me create a new file called JSON producer. And I have pasted that. All right. So now what we have to do is, so instead of like we are saying, okay, can you enter your message? So it is going to be form of a form of a string, but we want to send the message in form of a JSON. So JSON means a kind of a dictionary, right? So we need to send a message in form of a dictionary. So let's create some dictionary here. So maybe I can ask first name, enter your first name, right? And then I can ask second name, or you can say middle name, enter your middle name. And then I can ask enter your last name. And then I can ask age, input, enter your age, and age should be integer. So we can convert back to the integer. Now, before sending the message, we need to convert into a dictionary. So let's create a dictionary. So dictionary will be like this. First name, or better, what we can do is we can create a class. We can create a class. So let's create a user class user, and define it. And it is going to take first name, middle name, last name, and age. So self dot first name is equal to first name. Let me just copy paste. and self dot middle name is equal to middle name, self dot last name is equal to last name, and self dot age is equal to age. So we have created this class and now we have got all the message. So let's create a user. So user is equal to user type, and we have to pass all this argument. First name is equal to first name, and then middle name is equal to middle name, and the last name is equal to last name, and age is equal to age. So now this is of user type, but to send the message in the form of a JSON, all right? So like in terms of Python, so JSON is a kind of a dictionary, right? In terms of Python, we need a dictionary. So we need a function which is going to convert this user object to dictionary object, right? So we can do is we can create one function def user to dict, right? Which is going to take a user object and it is going to what happened? What happened? One second. So we need to convert back into dictionary. So first name is equal to user dot first name, last name is equal to user dot last name, sorry, and the middle name user dot middle name, and the age is equal to user dot age. All right. So now we get the dictionary. So now let's say I am going to pass. I will first convert user to dict to user. So I have this message, right? P dot send message user to dictionary. So it is a form of a dictionary. All right. So if I use the same code without doing any change, but I did the changes earlier, I am just sending the string. Now I need to pass the JSON object. So I am using I will create a dictionary, and in the produce function there is no change. So let's see whether it's going to work or not. So Python producer.py. So it is saying why it is asking enter your message. Okay, my file name is JSON producer. So let me close that. Python JSON producer. So it says enter your first name. Okay, Sumanshu. Enter your last middle name. I don't have middle name. Let's enter your last name and then enter your age. I have entered that. Now you could see a byte-like object is required, no dict. All right, so we are getting some error. It is the message did not publish. Even if you go to the test topic, you could see message did not get published. Only we have the two message which we publish using the normal producer application, not using the JSON producer. All right, and the reason is, and what the error is saying is a byte-like object is required, not the dictionary. So that's why, like before covering this topic, I have told you what is the serialization and deserialization, because the Kafka need the bytes-like objects, not the dictionary-like object, right? But now you can question in the earlier code as well, we are normally sending a string. So string is not a byte-like object, right? We are just sending a string, right? So we are sending a string, which is fine. But what my code is what this class is internally doing is it is automatically converting that into a byte object. But here the dictionary is not getting automatically getting converted into a byte like object. So byte like object means first we need to convert this dictionary into the JSON. All right. So basically before sending the message, we need to serialize it. So let's do self dot value serializer. So there could be two type of serializer, right? So if you come to the Kafka console, so we have the key and we have the value. So currently we are not passing any key, that why key is null, and we have the value. So do we want to serialize key? Do we want to serialize value? So key is then generally a kind of a string only. So generally in case of a key, we use string serialization. But in case of value, it could be like JSON serialization if the our message data type of is JSON. If it is a message type of a string, like in case, then we are using string serialization, which is by default. If the message type is value, sorry, avro, then we are using avro serialization. If the message is protobuf, then we are using the protobuf serialization. So that's why I am like specifically mentioning here value serializer, right? So what is my value serializer? So how you are going to convert in your Python code? If I give you tell you, you write a Python code to convert dictionary into the JSON, then what you will do is you will just going to import JSON, all right, and import JSON, and then you are going to do is let's create a Lambda function and its value. So you are going to do JSON dot dumps. So whatever you have the whatever you have the dictionary, if you have to convert into a JSON object, you have to dump, right? So JSON dot dumps. So now my JSON object has been created, right? My JSON object has been created. So this is the function. This is the function. Now before sending the message, this message is currently dictionary. So this message is currently dictionary. Before sending the message, I need to call this function. All right. So let's call this function. So self dot value serializer, and I can pass the message. So we are passing the message. It is going to convert. So now we can say JSON message. So now we have the JSON message, and this message we need to pass. And this message we need to pass. So basically, we convert dictionary object to the byte-like object. But still, you can say like it is a JSON. It's not a byte, but it's a byte-like object. But we will show. I will show you. But before that, let me change the class name. So instead of the producer class, let me change the JSON producer class. And here also JSON producer class. And I don't need the commit function. Because why I don't need the commit function? What I will do is I will import the producer because basically I am going to use the inheritance. So from producer, I am going to import the producer class, and here all the function we will use from here. So this thing we don't need to define. This thing we don't need to define. What we will do, we are going to use the super method dot init, and then we have to pass the bootstrap server topic. All right. So we need to pass the bootstrap server and topic. So we don't need this. All right, and that's it. Okay, so our object has been created here, JSON producer class, and hope everything is okay now. So let's try that. So earlier we are getting this error, byte objective, but we have converted now dictionary to the JSON. Let's see whether we will get the error or not. So enter your first name, Sumanshu, enter your middle name, no, enter your last name, this, enter your age. So, okay, dumps missing one positional argument required. Okay. So what we want to dump? So we want to dump the value. So let me rerun it. Python JSON producer. So once you enter, and 34. So you could say our message is published because we are getting the new message, enter your first name, even though we should like put some logging statement. Let me put some logging statement. If the message has been produced, we can do logging.info. We are not using logging. Better I can use print message sent. All right. But if I open the redpanda console and if I refresh it, so now I have the three message. The first message which I send using the normal producer, it is of type text. The second message which I like send using the normal producer, it is of type text. The third message which I send, it is of type JSON. All right. So you could see now we have sent the message in form of a JSON rather than in form of a normal string. But now you can question, okay, though we are sending, But as I said, the Kafka needs the message in form of a bytes. We are we are only converting our dictionary to the JSON, but we are not converting to the back to the bytes. So that red panda is automatically doing. So by default, red panda is automatically doing whenever the message is going to convert, it is doing that. But let's suppose in your code you want to clearly mention, okay, I am encoding that, so you can encode that using UTF-8. The message the output will be remain same. So let me close this and Python JSON producer.py. Enter your first name, middle name, last name, and age. So it says message has been sent, message sent. And if I go to the here red panda console, and if I refresh it, let me of the last message. So you could see still I am getting the JSON format, and I am getting the JSON format message. So in this way we can send the JSON format message. But what about on the consumer side? What about the consumer side? Because on here we did some changes. All right. So what changes we did? If we send the message in form of a dictionary, in form of a JSON, so we need to create our message in form of a JSON. But in the Python, to create a message in form of a JSON, we need a kind of a dictionary. So we need a dictionary, and to send the dictionary, we need to first use this serializer. So this is our custom serializer. All right. So maybe in many of the places you are using, people are using some third party serializer like the JSON serializer, which is available in the market. We can directly use that. We are also going to use that, but for the time being we are using the custom serializer so that we can understand the concept behind the producer is behind the serialization. Right. So we have done that. But what about the consumer side? What about the consumer side? Do we need any change on the consumer side? So I am not going to do any change on the consumer side, but let's run the application. So you could see I am sending the message and I am retrieving the message. First name is equal to Manchu, middle name is equal to Nagana, last name is equal to that, and this typo is a string. So basically, because here we are the message in form of a JSON and it is automatically converted into a form of a string. So on the consumer side, you don't need any change. So if the message is a form of a JSON, on the consumer side, you don't need any change. But let's suppose generally the change is required. Why the change is required? Because you are consuming, because you are consuming the message in form of a string. You are consuming this message in form of a string, but string which is a kind of a JSON. But in the Python, if you have to deal with JSON, let's suppose I need some kind of a code. I want to consume all the message which is published by the producer, and I want to get the first name and the age, first name and the age. All right, then I need to write a consumer application which is going to consume my all the message from the Kafka cluster. Right. So now it is consuming all the message from the Kafka cluster. As soon as consumed, so it is consuming in form of a string. It is consuming in form of a bytes. All right. But we decode our message and then it will convert to the string. But we can't directly use this, right? We can't directly use this in our Python code because this is a string. If I have to write very 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 custom logic to get these elements, right? But if I do something like that in a form of a dictionary, then it's very easy for me. So generally, because in the consumer side, we are not only consuming the message, after consuming the message, we are processing those messages. Either we need to store into the database or either we need to do some kind of manipulation with that message. So we are doing that as well. So here we are uh, doing message dot value, right? So message dot value, and we are decoding it. We are decoding it. So after decoding, we are getting a form of a string. Right. So we are getting a JSON string. But if you want to use it, you can do import JSON, and you can do JSON dot loads. Right. So print JSON dot loads, and what is the message we want to do? So this one. All right. So and it is of a type. It is of type. So better dictionary message is equal to control X, control V, and I can print the type. All right, so let me rerun my consumer application. Producer, let it be running Python consumer.py, and let me send some more messages. Bob Allison James 54. So message has been sent. So you could see by default the bytes has been if we don't decode, we are getting the message in form of a bytes. Why we are getting the message in form of a byte? Because Kafka store in form of a bytes. And if we need some readable format, then we can convert use the decode to decode our message. All right, so then we deserialize. But if we want to use it further to for the processing, then we can create a dictionary. So now it's form of a dictionary, and we can easily iterate over the dictionary to get the first name and the age. All right, so that is okay. Like so, like generally, not very much change is required in the consumer side, and but the changes are required in the producer side. That's why I created a separate class. But generally, if you noticed here, let me go here. So we have the topic. So let's suppose in our actual application. So currently this is our testing application, but in our actual application, you could see every message has different format. Here I am sending a string. Here I am sending a string. So like this is wrong, right? So all the message should have one format, right? So it means we need to define some schema. All the message should have one format, and before publishing the message, producer should validate that schema. So if the schema has been validated, then only it's going to publish. Otherwise, like consumer will face a lot of issue. Let's suppose my consumer application is running and producer send the message without any validation, because we don't define any kind of a schema, right? So there is no schema, right? So there is no schema, and without any validation we are publishing the message here. Now consumer has to consume. So let's suppose consumer consume this message, right? And in this message, consumer trying to find the a world first name, it did not find the consumer. Consumer application failed. Same case, consumer application is going to fail. In these three messages, consumer application going to work, but for the first two message, consumer application is going to fail. So ideally, for one microservices, in one microservices producing some message, that message should have some specific syntax in actual application. So to define the structure of the message, we need the schema, right? So currently we are sending in some this message in some this format, but let's define some schema. So we can define the schema. So we have to define the JSON schema, right? So how to define the JSON schema? So let me quickly copy paste. So let me quickly copy paste JSON producer. So this is my schema. All right, so it is of like same field, like first name, middle name, last name, age, and first name should be string type, middle name should be string type, last name should be string type, age should be string type, and like these are the validation like which I just put, right? And the minimum value should be 0. All right, okay, so we have done that. So now we have defined the schema, but where should I use that? Where should I use that? So first thing is that let me pass the schema as well. So let me pass the schema, and here I can use self dot schema is equal to schema, and while creating the producer application I can pass the schema as well. Okay, so now I am passing the schema. So before even doing the serialization, before even producing my message, all right, so I need to first validate the schema, right? Validate the schema. So how to validate the schema? So there is a one library called JSON schema. Import JSON schema. Let me cross check JSON schema Python and JSON schema Python. So JSON schema is the implementation JSON schema. So this library is has some validate function to validate my schema structure. So let me open that. So import JSON schema. Now I need to validate that. Before sending the message, I will validate. So JSON schema dot validate. What I need to validate? I need to validate my message, which is a form of a dictionary. Validate with which thing? Validate with schema. So self dot schema. So I need to validate with schema. All right. Let's suppose if the validation is going to fail, then it is going to print some message here. All right. Now let's try that. So let me stop my producer application and Python JSON producer.py. So it says enter your first name. I said Sumanshu. It says enter the last name Nankana. Enter last name. I again enter last name. Enter age 34. So because the message has been validated, so it's successfully sent. Let's again send and -3. So you could see I enter -3. So my validation has been failed, failing validation, because in the schema I said the minimum value should be 0. All right. But I am sending minimum value is -3. So my validation itself is failing. So it is not even sending the message. So if I come to this cluster, so you could see, so this is the message which I sent, which has the successful message age 34, but the message which has the age -3, it did not come. So we have prevent to publish those message which is not satisfying my schema. All right. So like in case we are sending some dummy message, right? So early this is wrong. We should not send this kind of message. We should send a message in form of a structure. All right, in actual application. So that's why we need to define some schema. So they, like in earlier video when I defining some when I explaining this diagram, I told you either we can store the schema in the schema registry or either we can store the schema locally. So if you store the schema in the schema registry, then you need to first pull it, and then whatever the message, you have to validate that message with the schema by pulling that schema from the schema registry. All right. And then you can serialize, and then you can convert into the bytes, and then you can send. All right. Or the other way is, if you don't want to use the schema registry, you can locally store the schema. Locally store the schema. So the disadvantage of storing the locally schema is, and because I need to store the schema in the producer application, I need to store the schema in the consumer application itself. All right. uh, if I store the schema at one place, schema registry, both can pull. So producer application can pull, consumer application can pull. Because if let's suppose if in future the schema is going to be changed, then I have to change the producer application, because if the schema is stored locally, like in this case, schema is stored locally, right? Locally means in my producer application. And if there is any change, let's suppose some other field comes, city, all right, then I need to change in the producer application, I need to change in the consumer application itself. But if I store at one place, schema registry, then I don't need to change in the producer application, I don't need to change in the consumer application, I only change into the schema registry. And the producer is going to fetch the latest schema, and the consumer is also going to fetch the latest schema. So that we are going to cover how to like publish into the schema registry, we are going to cover in the future video. But like in this video, what I want to say is we have to publish the message in form of a JSON. How we can do that, which I already covered that. Now, how we can make sure whatever the message we are publishing, that should follow some specific schema. So what we did is we manually serializing it, we manually validating the schema. All right, so we are manually validating the schema. But there are some libraries, as I told you, JSON serializer and JSON deserializer library. So currently, whatever we are doing manually, like we are validating this manually, we are like doing this dumps operation manually, we are encoding it manually. So all this operation, we don't need to perform manually. We can just import the JSON serializer or JSON deserialization library, and we can use that. That we are going to cover in the upcoming videos. because we have to understand the concept. Because if we just use JSON deserializer or JSON serializer, you don't know what is going behind the scene. So we should know what is going to behind the scene. That's why we use, okay, first we validate the schema, and then we are going to serialize it. So what are the steps? So let me go to here. So what are the steps? So if we are not defining the schema, so in our first case, we are not defining the schema. So what we did is we prepare the data in the form of a Python dictionary, because dictionary is not of a byte object. And when we are trying to send, we get some error, right? So because the Kafka needs, or producer needs, a byte object, so that's why we need to convert into the JSON, and then we need to serialize it to convert JSON into bytes, and we send to Kafka. All right, so this is on the producer side. So dictionary to JSON, JSON to byte. On the consumer side, consumer is like consuming the message in form of a byte, then it convert into the JSON string, then it can convert to the Python dictionary. All right, but if we have the schema, right, so either we can store the schema locally, or either we can store the schema in the schema registry. So in this video we covered the locally. So we all the steps are same. We prepare the data in form of a dictionary, we convert the data in form of a JSON, we validate that JSON message whether it matches the schema or not. If it is matches, then only we are going to serialize it and send to the Kafka. If the whatever the message we are trying to send, if it is not even validating the schema, we should not send that message. All right. So that's it. That's the end of the video. And thank you.